Hey, welcome to my basement, everybody. I'm your host, Victor Lucas, and boy, I've got a fantastic conversation for you today with Chris Kohler from Digital Eclipse and Charles Murakami from Konami. Both gentlemen join me to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection. And if you have seen any of my side-scrolling superhero segments, you know how excited I am about this collection. We're going to get right to it, but don't forget to hit that like button if you dig the convo, hit that subscribe button if you want more, and don't feel shy about sharing this with everybody that you know. All right, enjoy the show. I have been eagerly awaiting this game for a very long time, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection is almost here, and I'm with Charles and Chris that have both contributed to help make this dream a reality. I want to talk about how this started, you guys. How did the Cowabunga Collection, was that a Konami-led thing or a Digital Eclipse-led thing? How did it come together? Charles, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, it started back in 2019 when we had like the Contra collection and the Castlevania collection for our 50th anniversary. And from that, the fan feedback was like, where's our turtles? Where's our turtles? So it was like a no-brainer to make a TMNT collection. But as huge as a fan as I was, I knew who were just as big, if not bigger fans than me, which was Digital Eclipse. So that's when we contacted the people over at Digital Eclipse, and they were like eager to do it. And we knew this was the partnership that I wanted to have to make this collection.
That's awesome. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about how it felt around the office to receive that phone call? Because this is kind of like one of those retro holy grails, right? Like, I think everybody that thinks about classic game series or collections thinks about this as with hope in their heart. And it's finally come together. So how was it for you guys to sort of get tipped to bring this all together for us?
Yeah, it's certainly something that there was always this like Twitter chat about, Turtles collection when are they going to put all the Turtles games together in one collection? It was actually really fun because, of course, we were working on this for like a year and a half before we announced it. So it was just like, just you wait. Yes, the mood was exuberant. I mean, it was very shortly after I joined the company in mid 2020, I had absolutely no idea, and so I start working at Digital Eclipse, start working on some projects, and then I hear one day that Turtles got greenlit, and it's very exciting, and so it just starts dreaming up what we're going to do with it, and we really just found, and what was really wonderful is just to find a great partner in Konami, because we were all just on the same wavelength of, we want to make this big, we want to put it as we possibly can, we want every game, all 13 games, we want all 11 of the Japanese versions of those games that came out, we want everything from design documents and boxes and manuals and screenshots of the TV shows and comic book cover stands to really build out the Turtles Lair, which is what we're calling the museum section of the game. It's the Turtles Lair. And really just go in thinking it's finally happening. The dream project is finally happening, and we have to nail it in one. We've got to do it as best we can with this version of it, because who knows if the stars will ever align, so that it could happen again. So we knew we had one shot, and we all understood we had to do it.
You understood the assignment.
Exactly.
Charles, I'm wondering if there was a team or a person at Konami in Japan that had collected a lot of this material, had sort of been waiting for the go on this for a long time. Was there like a Turtles guru over there?
Well, I waited 30 years for this. So yeah. I would like to say I definitely push very hard, and one of the things they were talking about, like which games to put in, I definitely was like, no, you can't cut all of these, any of these. Some people, their nostalgic game is like the arcade game. Some people, they played on Genesis, and pulling some of the people in our office, their first games were the Game Boy ones. So
those Game Boy games are great, by the way, and it is surprisingly, like, I reviewed the first ones, because I have a series on our channel called Side-Scrolling Superheroes, so I've been begging for this idea for a long time, and I reviewed the Game Boy Follow the Foot Clan, and I was blown away. It's a really cool game, and I've been dabbling a little bit with the other two, and they're excellent games.
Yeah, and then when I mentioned like the enthusiasm for all the different types of games, even tournament fighters as well, there's so much enthusiasm for every game. And when I mentioned, told the people here about like what the collection should be, and I made a whole presentation about it, that's when they said, "Oh, you seem really passionate about this. The lead on it." And that was like one of the greatest news I've ever heard. And then from then on, I've been on like cloud nine. And then just the nervousness is about like trying to get my enthusiasm to the fans. And we were talking about design docs. I mentioned to the people in Japan who run the archive and see what they have. And they pulled it back. They went into the archive, which is hours away from Tokyo. We had to have people send people there. They pull it out. Wow. They're pulling out binders of these things. And these are like hundreds of pages. And I was like, oh God, this is fantastic stuff. And it's like, oh, does this look good? Do you want to scan it? I'm like, of course. They're like, good. Volume 2. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that's awesome.
It kept on going. And one of the other happiest moment is not only just having these, when I brought it over to Chris and seeing Chris's enthusiasm is when I'm like, all right, these are the guys.
Oh, that's so cool. So you had already started to kind of get this thing through the system at Konami, and you had materials to show these guys to get them excited about where they could go with all of this.
Not quite, actually. In fact, we had really prepared for, well, what if we can't get any material? It did take a long time for Konami to be able to get into the archive, because this was prime COVID time. This was like pre-vaccines, and so and only a few people are even allowed into the Konami archive, and none of them are on this video right now. And so it took a long time for somebody to finally get in there. But the thing is, we had actually prepped like, well, what are we going to put in the Turtles layer? Okay, well, we'll put screenshots of the TV shows, and we'll put in comic book covers, and we'll put in box scans and manual scans. We built out it's called the Interactive Strategy Guide. And so each game...
I love those, yes.
Thank you. It's like reading an old issue of Nintendo Power or Electronic Gaming Monthly with codes and tips and things like that, and humor, original artwork. So we kind of had all that, and then... So once we had prepared to have nothing, just in case, Konami then comes back with more design documents than I have ever seen. That were still stored at a partner. And, in fact, like it's almost 1,000 pages just of these black and white design documents that were written by the designers as they were creating these games. Did incredible look. I can't believe they saved them all, and they saved them all, and they had them all organized. It's this incredible look into the making of these amazing games during this amazing time, like the late 80s, early 90s in Japan, inside Konami. How did they do it? What was the process? How did things change from design to final? If you love Turtles games, but also if you're just like a student of video game history and you want to see this behind the scenes stuff, this is going to be an absolute treasure trove for you. And because there's so much in this museum, when you add in all the screenshots and the comic book covers and stuff like that, it gets to almost 2,000 different individual pieces of material that are in the Turtles layer. We actually have a search functionality as well. So everything is tagged, and you can pick radio buttons to say, I want to see every 8-bit video game manual that contains Bebop in it, and it'll come up with every time Bebop ever appeared in a manual. Or just pick Bebop, and it'll generate this big custom gallery of every time Bebop's face appears in, an advertisement or a manual or a screenshot or a comic book cover or the design documents. And so you can go even deeper than Bebop too. I mean, you can really get down to like some of the weird enemies, the Roadkill Rodney and stuff like that. I mean, it's all kind of listed in there. It's a Turtles fan's dream. I mean, it has to be, because there's so much.
And what's kind of interesting for me is that I think you reflect back the commitment that the original developers had with every one of these games. They didn't drop the ball, and it always bugs me when people have talked about licensed games not being as good as the video game industry can be, or there was some kind of negativity around licensed games, when you can point to the Turtles franchise that Konami did, as well as Batman games. There's several of these 16-bit and 8-bit games that were just phenomenal and so important to the history of our medium. And it sounds like that's how your whole team went into this, is you recognized the cultural value for sure, but also the design value, the development value, that these teams just poured their heart and soul into these games, and it shows.
Yeah, it's definitely right off the get-go. We always said, like, it's not just a collection. Each one of these are treasured masterpieces, and we'll treat each one of these as such. So
right.
we took every single one of these with as much care as we can. And I believe one of the things we discussed was, like, even in the game selection screen, each one has their own section. Like that was kind of important to showcase. These are all very important.
I'm curious, Charles, if there are still team members at Konami that worked on these games back then, and if you had any contact with them.
I have talked to them a little bit, but most of them kind of have moved on.
Okay.
But, over the years, I've been at Konami for a while now. I have talked to a few of them, how they approach video games over the years. So, but we do have the design docs, and so trying to definitely convey the inspiration that comes into these games that we try to convey in the game. That's definitely in the design docs that comes through.
Chris, you've always been a student of video game culture, and you've got a encyclopedic knowledge and a background in this business that's the envy of a lot of people, including me. And I'm wondering what was learned through this process about game development, and what surprised you about the approach that Konami would take on building each of these Turtles games. What did you learn?
One of the things that I'm so fascinating about the design documents is that even for these documents that were being written, just to be used entirely internally, a designer would be drawing these things, so the programmers could implement them into the game. There are so many just wonderful, like, sketches of the Turtles, animation sketches, or things where the designer is like, oh, Bebop's face should look like this, in this certain scene. And going through these design documents, they're so meticulously drawn and planned out. I mean, almost as if somebody outside the company was going to see them, even though they knew that wasn't going to happen. But you can just see, even when a rough sketch would have sufficed, there's a detailed sketch, and there's such love and such care taken in these design documents, and you can see, like, that's why it translates out to the final game,
right,
so well, because just really right from the beginning, there's just so much detail about what it is that they want to do, but really thinking about what the capabilities are of the system. They're not just doing it with no eye toward what's possible. So to see that and to understand that is really, it's a very special thing. And again, like, there's very few games for which this sort of rich vault of behind-the-scenes content is something that is publicly available. And so we're really excited to be taking all of it, and it really is. I mean, it's every single page from the Konami archive that we scanned, and it's hundreds of these pages. And just take it all, organize it, put it into categories so you know what it all is and what it all represents. We translated everything, because these pages are full of handwritten Japanese, sometimes very, very tiny handwritten Japanese. And it's like, you can look at them and say, oh, that's cool, but we actually went ahead and translated all of them. So there's, like, floating translations that will appear in your chosen language above these documents. And so you are going to be able to spend literally hours and hours just sitting, if you want to, just reading through all of these documents. And they are fascinating to me. I mean, I'm a huge nerd, so I mean, the tidbits that are in there are really, really interesting. And I hope that people appreciate and love the fact that all of this stuff is now just it's out of the secretive Konami archives, and it is publicly available to you.
I can't imagine how many people this is going to influence, indie developers that are huge fans of pixel art, because this was from an era when games were just full on magic and mystery. We had no idea how this stuff was getting made. I mean, we would have interviews in magazines, things like that, but we didn't have Twitch, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have developer commentary. I don't even think GDC was kicking around back then. So, a lot of this stuff is being unveiled for the first time by you guys. That must feel incredible. But let's talk a little bit about the first reveal of the Cowabunga Collection in general, which I believe was at a PlayStation showcase. Is that correct?
That's correct.
was the best thing in that PlayStation the showcase.
Well, thank you.
And
That's very kind of you to say.
Well, I remember just flipping out, going, "Oh my God, that's incredible!" But I know your world because you've been so head down, focused on this project. It must have changed that minute. Like the minute that you guys revealed this, things must have got nuts for both of you. Can you tell me a little bit about how that was? We'll start with you, Charles.
I mean, of course, I was nervous showcasing it for the first time, but and with incredible games along with it, but the fan reaction coming from that was an incredible sigh of relief. And as much as being a super fan, you start to think this thing's awesome, but because I'm a fan, I kind of expected that. But seeing like the outpouring from everybody else, it's motivating. I'm so glad I did it. You get that feeling. and I felt a bit of more of a community too, because when you're working on a game, I have Digital Eclipse and we're all excited, but it's still a very, small team. But when you open it up to everybody and seeing everybody else excited, and we're like, yeah, we're all excited. That's a great feeling.
So, Chris, how was it for you? Because I'm one of your Facebook friends, and we're in a group of journalists that are always moving around and talking about all it. Except I'm still doing EP. I've always been doing EP, but I was curious about what you were working on and what you were cooking up over at Digital, and then it's boom. It's the biggest collection ever of retro games ever.
Yeah, and so it's just like, we had released, I had worked on 3 projects, prior to this that had been released, and people had reacted very favorably to them. But we always knew that this was sort of the this was kind of the big one that we were kind of saving up, and as it got closer and closer to that announced date, and basically by the time we announced it, we were basically content complete on it. We knew it was going to be in there, but that first announcement was really just about the collection exists. It's going to have these games. There's a little bit of tease about what the features were. So of course the fan reaction at that time, the fan reaction, the industry reaction, everybody, as you say, everybody on Facebook too, were just flipping out about it, and people have been overwhelmed, I think, with what we've then announced since then. We went to Comic-Con with it, and that's really, pulled back the curtain on all of the features, everything that we're putting inside, and sort of showing that to people as well. And so, it has been great. It's been pretty great. It's been pretty great because now when I tell people what I'm, I don't have to tell people, I work at Digital Eclipse, we make these collections. I'm just like, we're making Cowabunga Collection. They're like, you're making Cowabunga Collection? It's wild how widespread the excitement for it is, and we're just ready for it to get out there to people at this point.
That's awesome. Charles, you're a super fan, self-professed, of the Turtles. I think we all are here. And it's weird for me because it's been through the video games that I've become such a fan. And I didn't really read the books back then. And so now I'm becoming more, at this late stage in my life, I'm becoming a much bigger fan of the Turtles, and I love them. But talk to me about why the Turtles translates so well to video games. What makes them a great video game property?
I actually had this conversation with Kevin Eastman, which is another dream come true, but he's the creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I mentioned how having 4 turtles that have 4 distinct weapons with 4 different characteristics, with also a gallery of both heroes and villains to work off of, is almost just tailor-made to be a video game. And I could see Turtles video games going on for a very long time, but man, right from the get-go, we had all these characters to make a video game off of. So it's almost like a no-brainer to make video games off of these, whether he knew it or not. But and the arcade having 4 players in it was so natural for something like the Turtles. So it was a perfect storm.
I want to get into the specifics about the enhancements and the tweaks and improvements that you did to each game, but I'm curious, what were the most challenging games to kind of modernize and to get running again?
So the biggest challenge, I would say, that the engineer who worked on a lot of the enhancements for the game. So I mean, I'll start with kind of like the stuff that maybe is a little bit more obvious, like there's certain games where you can give yourself more lives to start with. You can pick what level that you want to start on. For some of the 8-bit NES games, you can turn off really the sprite flicker or the slowdown in those games. That's something that I kind of do. And then, but then it starts to get weird. So in the arcade game, and this ended up being kind of tricky for everybody. In the arcade game, if you do too well at the arcade game, it drops bombs on you. If you haven't lost any life, the arcade game will start trying to kill you so it can get more of your quarters. And so we have a way to disable those penalties for either standing around or getting bombs dropped on you. But then also the arcade game has what we kind of call nightmare mode, which is a switch that can flip in the arcade game that sends out way too many enemies to try to kill you and take more of your money. And so we just let you turn that on. Definitely, I think if you were to ask the game engineer what the hardest one to implement was, it would have been in Turtles Tournament Fighters for the Genesis. We have the ability to play as the 3 boss characters, and this was not part of the original game, like at all. Like you couldn't even do it with a secret code.
Wow!
And so he actually went and implemented that. And so you can pick those characters off the stage select menu, just like the other. It's a Tournament Fighters, Champion Edition. It's got 3 totally new characters for people to play.
That's awesome.
I think that took the most work for sure.
That's just in the Genesis game, though.
That's just in the Genesis game. In the Super Nintendo game, playing as the bosses was something that you could do via a code.
Chris, what are you proudest of in game-wise when you're just playing the games? I know it's got to be the museum piece and all of the collection of all of the other items, I would imagine. But when you're playing the games, what are you the most proud of when you're actually playing these things?
I think, when I'm sitting back honestly, I mean, I am very proud of the work that this incredible team did. And when you look at something like, we talked about the interactive strategy guide, and that is something that for every game, you can pause the game and go to the strategy guide option, or just go to the Turtles Lair and read the whole thing. It's basically this, wacky idea that I had of let's, make like an old Nintendo Power-ish magazine, and everybody came together to make that a reality. And I include Charles here because Charles he volunteered basically to make all of the maps, to take screenshots of the games and put maps together for them.
Wow.
We had an incredible artist on the Digital Eclipse side who did all this original artwork of the Turtles, but he did it in a old, Nintendo Power sort of pseudo-Japanese style. It was really great. And, we had another artist who had to build all of the layouts. Engineering got involved because guess what? When you see a quote-unquote screenshot in this magazine, it's not a screenshot. It's something you can click on. You can watch a video. So if it's about a strategy for fighting a boss, you can actually watch a watch mode, video of that taking place. Just like the level of, of manpower and talent essentially that had to come together at Digital Eclipse to like make this wacky idea a functional, cool reality is so far beyond me. And so like the fact that I'm working with this incredible team that can do it is a real blessing.
Yeah, and one of the tremendous work that went into it is to get these games online as well, and especially like the arcade game, figuring out who sits where, because in the arcade the character selection is depending on where you put the quarter, so they had to create UI for that as to start playing online. So all that work that Digital Eclipse put in to get that working is tremendous.
I know that you met with Kevin Eastman.
Kevin Eastman.
And did you meet with Peter Laird as well about any of this stuff, or
the caretaker who's been keeping TMNT going for the past 30 plus years has been Kevin Eastman, and the other hidden partner that we have is Nickelodeon, and they were the ones that got us in touch with Kevin Eastman, and as I was trying to contain my excitement meeting him. But the one thing he got us was two completely new pieces of art for the limited edition of the game. And one is a cloth poster of his take on the Turtles in Time, the swirl with like the Statue of Liberty. That one's one of my dreams come true. But the other one that he also made for the cover of the box was, if you remember the arcade game, when the Turtles bust through the window as they're chasing Shredder, as Shredder has April in his arm.
Yeah.
The scene after is the box art. So the Shredder has April and he's escaping on a Technodrome while the Turtles are fighting these foot soldiers. And then scene 2 starts with like, after that Shredder. So like that scene in the middle is now canon. That cover is now canon. And
oh my God, that's awesome. Did you have a chance to talk to Kevin about his feelings about these classic games and what it was like to see these things come out in the day?
Kevin and Peter as well, very uniquely amongst creators of, sort of like an indie comic that went on to huge success, they were able to maintain a lot of creative control, like contractually, over all of the spin-off products that came later, which meant that while these games were being made, I mean, they were being consulted and they were signing off on final approval of all of this stuff, which probably is certainly one of the aspects of why these games, were so close to the original source material, why everything is so accurately represented, because Kevin and Peter were involved, and so yeah, we got to talk to him about that, and I mean he's just really a happy guy as far as he can't believe that this creation of his and Peter's is still going now, and the fact that these games are coming back, and he was great to work with on not one but two pieces for the limited edition, which are both pretty amazing, and I can't wait to hang up that poster. And yeah, it was. Awesome. I mean, it's a dream come true. We got to spend a couple of days with him at Comic-Con. It was pretty awesome.
That is so cool. Talk to me about showing the Cowabunga Collection off to people at Comic-Con. Did you, I'm sure people were just elated, but did you get any observations or anything that you really took to heart, or like a perspective that you hadn't thought of before when you were meeting with people?
Comic-Con was very much like, oh God, I'm actually going to take these things that we made and I'm going to show them to people and be really excited about it, and then I'm going to hope that they don't go, oh, okay, sure, yeah. No, and hope that they maybe have.
I don't think that's the crowd, Chris.
Exactly. I know. But you get very nervous because you're like, and here's this thing we made. What do you think? And so it was wonderful at Comic-Con to get to do demos of the game and show it to people and really talk about the specifics of what it is we're doing, and see that there was just so many people there who were as excited about it as we are. And again, just like, we're so close now to everybody being able to get their hands on it, so I just can't wait.
That's awesome.
One of the best things I saw at Comic-Con was the age range, and boys and girls, men and women of all ages, and I even
parents showing their kids, right?
Yeah, there's a little girl dressed up as a Ninja Turtle.
Nice.
One of the interesting things I didn't realize was going to happen at Comic-Con is, of course, we had all the game demo stations set up, and there were so many of them, and all the monitors were facing the same way. So if you stood in the back of the room, you could look at everybody playing, and you could look at what they were playing. And so we were always constantly checking the banks of monitors to see who's popping up, because of course a lot of people were playing Turtles in Time. That's such a hugely popular game.
Yes.
But I always thought it was great when I would look over and like, somebody was playing Radical Rescue on the Game Boy, or somebody was playing NES Tournament Fighters. These are games that are the original versions of these games are now rare collectibles.
Yes.
Because they didn't sell that many copies because they sort of came out late in the day. And so people are going to be able, unless you were like the richest rich kid and you had 2 arcade machines in your house and every video game system that existed, you're probably going to have some games in this collection that you don't have any personal experience with.
You're going to be able to complete the Konami collection, man. That's incredible.
Exactly, and you're gonna find some things that you never knew that you enjoyed, and with our features like being able to save anywhere, being able to rewind is so huge for some of these games. It's like you're playing. Oops, I took a ton of damage. It's like, oh, let me just rewind a couple of seconds and let me try that again. it's just making these games more accessible to a new audience in every way that we can.
That is so rad. This is an impossible question, I'm sure, for each of you, but I need to ask it. Charles, what's your favorite of the Turtle games that's in the collection?
Nostalgia-wise, it's the original arcade. Played it with my friends at the local bowling alley. But as I've been playing all these collections, like, I've never played Radical Rescue back then. And then now that I've played it over 30 years later, it's like, my God, it's so good. So for right now, TMNT 3 Radical Rescue is like my current favorite.
I love that. That's awesome. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think back in the day, the arcade game would have been my favorite. Now I have a renewed appreciation for Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project for the NES. At the time, the Super NES was already out, so it's kind of like, oh, I don't really want to play an 8-bit game anymore. I'm going to move on to 16-bit games. But going back and playing it now, oh my gosh, that game is an 8-bit masterpiece. They took the sort of the engine of Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, and then they made this brand new, totally original game for the 8-bit platform that was just like, they packed in so much, that so many levels and so many bosses and so much animation. The Turtles all have different moves. I really, really enjoyed replaying Manhattan Project, and if you've never played it, I mean, that might be one to start with if you've never tried it, because it's really just incredible.
I don't think you're going to run into this problem because it is a game series that crosses generations. There's going to be so much nostalgia and so much current love for the Turtles. But what is it about these games specifically that make them more than just a product of licensing? What makes them great games, Chris?
They were worked on by these amazing teams at Konami from back in the day. People who made, some of your favorite non-licensed Konami games worked on these games also, and they absolutely did not phone it in. And again, you were going to look at these design documents and you were going to realize, oh wow, no, they really gave it their all. This was not like a little licensed project to work on in between, the big stuff that they really wanted to make. Oh no, these are games where they put an incredible amount of work into them. Even, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, especially the SNES version. I mean, this was something that has, a phenomenal level of detail in it. This was Konami attempting to get into the burgeoning, one-on-one fighting game genre. This was their big entry, and they really, did a great job at it. And so you can really tell the love and the care that went into these, the game design craftsmanship. And that's why everybody's been asking for these games. They're not asking them because of a nostalgia hit. They're asking for them because these games are just so fantastic. And yeah, it took a while for the stars to align, between Nickelodeon and Konami and Digital Eclipse, and everybody to be ready to work on these together. But we're not doing it halfway. Doing every game, we are doing as much bonus content as we possibly can, just really more than we've ever done. And it's like, this is the definitive collection. This is the premium product. Okay, so we have this clearly one of the definitive retro game collections ever created, and this, kudos to you guys. And it's especially impressive that Digital Eclipse is doing this, because that's what their forte is. Right. And I know they have this huge Atari one coming out later this year, which is awesome. But we are going to get this, and the questions and the cries for more are going to be there. And so I'm wondering, are there plans afoot? Because Konami made a lot of incredible, like all the Batman games that you guys made. Is there more potentially that's going to be coming?
I'm always glad when people ask for more, right? And once again, one of the great things, the reason why TMNT came together is like the fan outcry for it really made it a lot easier for me to put this collection together. So, and the reason why we put in all these games together in the first place, all 13, is once again, we don't know if we'll ever be able to get this chance again. Right. So we felt that pressure of putting the most definitive collection that we could. And so it's like having the fans asking for it and trying to meet those expectations is what brought this collection together. So once again, hearing fans ask for more Konami games is great. Of course, I can't mention anything if we're working on anything of that sort. Even
I
don't
can
know.
read between the lines, my friend. I know what you're asking us to do. You want us to sort of ring the bell and sort of lay out the other collections that we would like to do. Chris, I got to ask you this: are there other Konami properties that you would love to see one day be made into a collection of this stature?
Yeah, I think that we have gotten on famously with Konami with this collection, and I think we all agree that it would be wonderful to keep working together. And so it's just a question, you know what I mean? So it's just a question of like, are the stars going to align again? Is it going to happen again? I think that I've been in so many Zoom meetings with Charles. You know, I mean, I'm not tired of him yet. You know, so it's great to see him again.
I think we are three of a mind here that really believe in the value of being able to play these classic games and making them accessible to people and telling the stories about them. I'm so happy that all of this stuff is coming out, and I've been playing a bunch of these games for a while now, and they're just incredible games. So I can't wait for more people to re-experience them or experience them for the first time. This has also been, though, a very big year for the Turtles in side-scrolling form because of Shredder's Revenge. And what a celebration, right? I mean, all the way around with the 13 games that you're providing and Shredder's Revenge. Did you guys have any contact with the team working on that game at all? Has there been any, friendly tweets back and forth or anything like that?
Quite honestly, we found out when you guys found out. So. But
if they're watching right now, I want to let them know how much I enjoyed the game. We really loved it.
Yeah, it's clearly a game that is completely inspired by all of the collection that you guys have put together, and it's just like this homage to all of this work. It's incredible. And to re-experience those classic games again after Shredder's Revenge, it's just like a direct through line. It's like a total connect the dots moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and on top of that, we, as homages go for the collection, a lot of the reason why Nickelodeon asked Nickelodeon for the TV show screenshots, and they got us in contact with IDW so that we could put in like the comic book covers and such as well. So we wanted to make sure that as you play the games, you know where the inspiration for each of these, like the TV show inspirations, which comic books it comes from. So in that respect, homage is a perfect word. That's definitely one of the high points that we wanted to touch on.
You know, you keep hearing the people saying, Turtles fans are eating good in 2022. They're, the Shredder's Revenge was the delicious pizza for dinner. Cowabunga Collection is the second pizza at 2 a.m. It's gonna be a good night.
I love it. Well, congratulations, you guys. Real treat to speak with both of you. And I as a fan of these games and as a fan of both of your companies, I couldn't be happier. And we want more, Charles. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
All right. Take it easy. Bye-bye.